Today is Maker's Monday and we're going to finish this quilt. Today is February 27th, 2023. It's Monday, it's Maker's Monday. Thank you for being here. Let's continue where we have been. A few weeks ago, I taught you how to do the Cathedral block, which is basically this curved part. We made a whole bunch of different blocks and they're actually all up here on the wall now. I used pre-cuts, so I've got 10-inch pre-cuts, 5-inch pre-cuts. This is another 10-inch, and then this actually is a 5-inch that's in here, but I did use some yardage to get a 7-inch pre-cut and for some sashing. So you can add that or not, but this basically is a pre-cut friendly block. And I made them and they're all up here on the wall now. Would you like to see what I've been up to? So these are all the Cathedral blocks that I made a few weeks ago. And I have at least 2 of each kind of block. In some cases there were 3, but they're all different and they're all mixed up here. I've been rearranging the wall, trying to even out the colors and the patterns and the whites. So what's going to happen is on these small blocks, let's see, there we go, like this. These are the smallest blocks. See, here's the full size. Well, here's the full size block. Maybe you can see that better. And then here's this. So I need to make up this much room. So my thought was to make a frame around all of those using that white polka dot fabric that I've intermittently put in the blocks to help tie everything together. So I'm keeping that in mind. So basically where you see the white here, you're going to see a white sashing, except I do have a gap between these bigger blocks. But anything that's little, that has space, will have white around it. This one. Now, these are interesting. I have 3 of these, and they're green. But that's an odd number, but that's all that I had. So what I did is I put 2 here, and I offset it with 2 white blocks. And I've got these pinned on here because I'm going to make white on white like this. I'm going to do 2. So that's what's going to happen here, and I'll make a 4 patch just like this one and like this one. And then I have 1 extra one, and this one had a slightly different look to it. The background on that was actually a print from this line, so it's not solid. So I decided to make this one a little bit different, and right now I'm thinking of making 4 blocks like this one, and then putting I've got the fan going, so everything's pinned. Putting this on top of it, like this or something. I don't know. Let's see. So that's my thought. Except I just got rid of the cute little print that's on there. Let me show you what I'm talking about. These are little safety pins, white on white safety pins. And then the solid white, I just was playing with it and it got turned under. So yeah, so by doing that, I'm completely getting rid of that little print. So I don't know. But what I could do, I just came up with an idea, is make another block like this. I have enough of the white, and take one of these and put it there, and then take this and put it in the other one, so I would have 2 of the same block, because that was my goal, is to make 2 of everything. And maybe 1 of these. No, that, I don't know. Now I've got a new plan. This is the whole part of just playing with the wall. I kind of liked this though. And since this is a loner I don't know, we'll see what happens to this. This is me working on this block first thing this morning. Bad hair, I don't care. Because I had pieced some of them together, like 4 or 5 patches does not equal a 10-inch square. So I had to add a little bit of fabric to it to make it be 10 inches. And this is that extra yardage that I had, and it's a white on white polka dot. So I've actually gone through and laid everything out the way I want it to be. And I have made all the blocks 10 inches. And so some needed a bigger border than others, but they're all 10 inches. And now I'm going to start sewing my rows together, and I have my fabric cut out already for a border, 4-inch border of that polka dot fabric. And then there'll probably be, if I want to go bigger, something, I don't know. I've used all of this fabric. Unless I find some yardage of it, I'd be introducing a whole new color. So I'm going to get that far and see what happens. And maybe just a colored binding will be enough. But this is going to stay here probably in my sewing room. So keeping it small might make sense because I don't have a lot of wall space. Anyway, I'm going to talk to you more, not so much about building the blocks or putting them together, because I think you can figure that out just row by row, which we will do, but it's more how I figured out how to get these that size. It did take a little bit of math, and if this is something you are interested in doing, you may want to know how to do this. So this is my square in square quilt block, and I'll put the link to that at the end of the video. It's a no cut, see, there's no cutting. And then I did the Cathedral block in it, and that was all done in the video a few weeks ago talking about how to make these blocks. Now this is the only block that I did have to trim down. I had to take about 1/2 inch off around here, just because I wanted it to be the same size as this one. This one took up more room because it's on an angle, and so I just wanted them to be the same, and now they are. Other than that, I didn't do any trimming anywhere. So this will be fun. Okay, so anyway, this inner block right here is 8 1/4 inch, and I need it to be 10 inches. So what you have to do is you have to account for your seam allowances. Now with a 1/4 inch seam, you're losing 1/2 inch for every seam, because each side has 1/4. Does that make sense? So when you add your fabric to it, you need to add and then subtract your seams. So this one ended up being two 1.5 inch strips on each side to make it, because I had more seams in it. If I just decided to do it on one seam, that would be a whole different dimension. But I did a 1.5 inch seam. Yes, sorry. So when you take 8 1/4 plus 1.5 times 2, which is 3, okay? You take 8 1/4 plus 3, that equals 11 1/4. Well, guess what? Now this is where you subtract your 1/2 inch per seam. So you take a 1/2 inch off here and a 1/2 inch off here, and now you come up with 10 1/4. And actually my blocks, I did keep it at 10 1/4 because my pre-cuts were just a little on the big side. I'm not sure why, but if I use the outer pink edge, it's 10 1/4. So I actually measured it to that. So you can measure however you want, but that's how I came up with this. So again, you take your center block, okay, and then you add to it and subtract your seam allowance, and then you're going to want to make sure it's square, and these have not been squared up. I think we're good enough that I can, big blocks are easier, more forgiving. One thing I want to point out as I'm putting this together is you want to make sure, I don't know about you, but this is something I would pick up on, that you put the side pieces on first and then the top and bottom. Whatever way you do, whether it be the top first and then the sides, I would suggest that you keep all of your blocks going the same orientation. And even though it's white, it will be hard to see up close, you might see it. So in my case, I did the sides first. So side, and so the long piece is going to be top and bottom. So I'm just making sure, because I've moved my blocks around, that my long piece is still running across the top and the bottom. And I have a pattern going. I don't know if you can see it. I did not want to put 2 of the same print next to each other or 2 of the same color next to each other. And because these blocks were not planned when they were made, they were just random. It's a lot of playing around, and I'll show you some footage of me just messing with that, trying to be happy with it. What my pattern is anything with a white border is going on an angle like this. So you can see every other block is a 10 inch square followed by one with a border. 10 inch square, one with a border. And the only exception to that is this is 30 blocks, by the way. It's 5 across by 6 down. And instead of having 15 of each kind, because I just randomly made them, I had 16 of the 10 inch squares and 14 of the ones with borders. And all that means is I cannot come up with an even pattern. So I disguised it. This is a block that should have a white border around it, but by putting this print here, I think it blends in, because I purposefully put darker ones next to it to make it look not so off. And since it's going to stay in my house, I think it's good enough. But it was quite the challenge, because I didn't want 2 of the same prints next to each other or 2 of the same color, and I need to make sure I really am still good. Down at the bottom, which I don't know if you can see, down here I do have spools on here, and here is this thread fabric, and so everything is like on that side of the wall. I'd like to put one of these over here if it doesn't mess up my wall. Some of these have a direction too, like the words here. And there's actually some little words in these little blocks that are probably not really meant to be a directional block, but because it is so small, I tried to keep them directional. So keep that in mind when you're building your block and putting your sides on, if it matters to you. I've sewn all my blocks together, all my rows together, and now what's left is to put the binding on it. So it's a 4-inch binding that will go all the way around it, and then I will probably be done. I don't know that I want it any bigger. I like it. What do you think? I'm done with this. I used every bit of fabric that I had from everything I was using. I don't know how much yardage I started with. I just kept cutting into it, and then I used it around here, and then I had a bunch left over, and I estimated what I would need for my border, and I thought I was going to be good, and I was exactly short enough that I needed to put cornerstones in. But that's not a bad thing, because those look okay. If I would have come like to here, I would have had to rethink my borders altogether. So it was a happy accident, but there we go. That is it. And it's got a lot of give to it, so it looks a little wavy, but it will straighten out when it's quilted. In fact, I'm thinking I'm going to quilt it instead of sending it to the long arm. I need to at least talk to them about it, because there's a lot of thicknesses here and they might not want anything to do with it. And I might just stitch in the ditch and quilt it that way. In fact, that looks a little more, makes a little more sense. So I don't know when this will get finished, we'll see. But it's done. Let's see how big it ended up. 56 by 66. Let me know what you think. Thanks for being here today. Come back next week and also check my other videos out.